One. We are live, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation and Treaty 3 territory. My name is Neil Harden. I'm chairing today's panel. With me via Zoom is Michelle Duncan, and in the committee room is Robert Upton. The assessor today is Kem Wong, and the administrative assistant is Jaswinder Kumar. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment rule in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by council and is independent of it in the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order to be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal information on how to do so, will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions the applicant may have, then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application be brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You'll receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed and recorded and will be part of the public record. We'll be hearing items 1 through 8 on our docket today. Mr. Kumar, please affirm the assessor's and applicant's testimony.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
I'm Wong.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Rocky Newfeld.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
All right. The first property on the agenda today is 1025 Grant Avenue. So, Mr. Wong, you can proceed with your presentation. And the matter is assessed value.
Okay. The subject property is 1025 Grant Avenue. The roll number is 120-157-59100. The file number is 22-1987. Subject property is a residential apartment block. It's 5 stories high and it was built in 1965. There are 62 suites with 28 indoor parking stalls and 28 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. On page 4 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $1,105 to get a potential income of $822,000. We used a we used a vacancy of 3.2% to get an effective gross income of $796,000, and we used a 44% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $44,000. Capped at 6%, the estimated market value is $7,388,000. On page 5 are our rent comparables, showing that the rents that we've used are in line with the market. On the bottom of page 5 are some expense comparables that range from 43 to 50%, which supports the model expense ratio of 44%. On page 6 is a calculation of the revised value that I have on my page 1. the model is estimated their effective gross income to be 796,000, but in 2020 their income was actually 721,000. So I'm recommending a revised value based off of an adjustment to the income. So applying a 44% expense ratio to $721,000. Their net operating income is $401,000 and capped at 6%. Their estimated market value is $6,692,000. On page 7 is a comparable sale. The subject property is valued at $99 a square foot based off of the revised $6,692,000. And 11 on the bottom of page 7 is 1139 Grant, which sold at $132 per square foot. So the sale of 1139 Grant supports the revised value. On page 8 is information on how we derived our cap rates, with the majority of them falling between 4.8 and 5.6%, and with some falling below 4.8% and some falling above 5.6%. The subject property is at 6%, so it's in the highest 80th percentile. On page 9 are some cap rate sales that range from 3.6 to 5.74%. On page 11 is the income statement supplied by the owner. So the revised model rents and the revised rents that we've proposed is supported by the market, and the revised value at $99 a square foot is supported by the sale of 1139 Grant at $132 a square foot. So I ask that you accept the revised value of $6,692,000.
Is that your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, questions, Mr. Neufeld?
Yes. So as I take it, just make sure I got this right. Page 4 was driven by the model, and you adjusted the rent to the effective gross income to the actuals, but maintain the model-driven expense ratio.
Yes.
And everything else.
Yes.
The cap rate applied. Okay. And on your comparables that you're using to support these, did you determine who pays for the utilities on these?
No.
In the subject's case, looking at page 11, I think it's fairly clear that utilities are included, are they not?
It says heat and water, not hydro.
Well, how's it heated? $9,300 for hydro. You don't think that the hydro and the heat is included?
Well, I'm not sure.
It's one
if you
bill,
look on page
right?
12.
Yeah.
It appears that heat and hydro included, heat and water. Sorry.
Heat and water. Okay, then let's just go back to the others. Do you know whether the heat and water are included in your comparables that your expense comparables, page 5? I mean, it's fair to say most times water is always included because it's too hard to meter. I guess I'm more curious about the heat, whether or not these have been converted to electric.
Yeah, on the comps 1, 2, and 3, the heat is included.
Okay, and you introduced a sale. The apartment blocks don't sell by per square foot, do they? I mean, I've never seen it before. I'm just curious. Wouldn't it be by per unit, but mostly based on its income?
You can compare it by per unit, or I think you compare it by square foot. Like if you compare it by per unit, sometimes the unit suite mix aren't exactly comparable. So sometimes a value per square foot is a little bit more comparable.
And just curious, since you brought it in as a sale, why didn't you consider providing the income to show us what the cap rate was?
I didn't look into it.
Okay.
If I can interject here, we're using the income approach, so direct comparison approaches of little value.
I understand. We have a sale here, so it might be an opportunity to examine. Very well. On the, I had one more question here on the income side. You using the actual sales, did you, and you have the statement here, did you go back and look at the past performance of this property and consider their actual expenses?
Consider their expenses for what?
Their expenses in general. I mean, here, the difference on the NOI, the one you provided, they're showing 368,000. You've calculated it or put it in at 401,000. So did you run their expenses and historically just look back what they were? Where's
no, I did not. Okay. No, I did not.
Those are my questions. Thanks.
Okay. Bob, any questions?
Questions right now, thank you.
Okay. Michelle, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, I have a question. If you look at your page, what is it? Page 4. Okay. You have your expenses at 44.34, but that's of a higher number of 796,000.
Yes.
Which gave an expenses of 353,000.
Yes.
Which was more or less similar to what Mr. Neufeld will be arguing in a few minutes. Yet when you drop the income, I mean, shouldn't the expenses remain the same?
I think
since the expenses don't depend upon the income.
Well, like the percentage is, I would say it's separate. It's a model percentage. You could try to look at the expenses and maintain the expenses, but I'm not sure if that would be consistent. If you look at the net operating income that the model is estimated, it's estimated at 443,000, and I've adjusted the net operating income to be 401,000. So I believe it is reflected in terms of a lower net operating income to more represent the subject property.
Yes, but then it affects the expenses as well as the income. I mean, if the model predicts that the expenses will be 353,000, shouldn't they, based on the modeled income, shouldn't they remain at 353,000?
Well, if the thing is, the 353,000 is based off of a 822,000 potential income. So I believe that if you adjust the potential income, you should adjust the expenses as well.
Okay, all right. I have no further questions then. Mr. Neufeld, you can begin your presentation.
Thank you. I did submit some rebuttal information, and I think, Mr. Chairman, I think you just went over it. I was waiting to speak to it then. It's marked 1025 grant rebuttal.
Do we have it
Not yet, Mr. Chair. I can just put that in.
Okay.
And has it been sent to me yet?
Not yet. Yeah.
No. Do you want me to just send? Are you? Oh, you're not in there. I'll send it. I'll forward it to you as
No,
well.
I can send it. I can send it, Mr. Nipul.
I'll bet you I'll be quicker.
Okay, it's in that folder, Mr. Chair. There's
All
four.
right. Let me just
All right.
refresh it.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, we have it.
Where's the rebuttal?
You got it?
No, I don't.
Okay. This one.
On 10.5 grand.
Give me the rest. So these are the rebuttals.
Oh, there it is here. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Ms. Neufeld, if we can have your main presentation first and then followed by questions and then your rebuttal followed by questions.
Okay. Well, my main presentation is very, very similar to what the assessor said. We're using 721,000. We're stabilizing expenses at 352,000. The rebuttal you're going to get just is historical information on the property. Expenses have never been below 344,000 ever. And for the last 6 years that have been submitted to the city. So they don't decrease in proportion to the rent claimed. Most expenses tend to be fixed. The cost of heat or building.
Can we take just a short break here? Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Okay. Yeah, live, Mr. Chair.
We're good to go?
Yeah.
Okay, Rocky, we're hearing your initial evidence.
Thank you. Just page one, as I was saying, the expenses do follow a pattern more to being fixed rather than variable, because the costs don't change in relation to the income. It's not like running a restaurant where you have higher sales and your food cost stands the same. Most of these apartment expense ratios tend to be more fixed, and the truth of the matter is in their history, which we're showing 3 years worth on page one, and the rebuttal. I don't know if I need to go through it. I've entered it into evidence. It's 6 years of operating experiences. The lowest expenses ever have been 344,000. There was 1 year at 580, which of course we're not applying, but we're using an average of the 3 years, stabilized at 352,000. The reason for stabilization is that a lot of it's weather dependent. If it's a cold winter, heating costs are up. Warm winter, they're down. That's the major variance in costs over time. That gets our NOI to 368,484, and our ratio is 48, which is actually within the assessor's range of reported expense ratios, and I think reasonable. Our cap is a touch higher, and I think that it's just some minor issues why it would be a bit higher. Firstly, the parking stall ratio is 1.4 to 1, which is code. Current code, this is legal, but it's just, more cars parking. You can derive more income, and you can attract people, double income families that both have cars, and hopefully get higher rents. Probably the large issue is the vast amount of 1-bedroom units. It's not that bad a mix. But it does hold the rents back, and the age of it, the costs. It's not young anymore, so it's just going to run higher maintenance costs. And that's my presentation. Thank you.
Very good. Any questions, Mr. Wong?
Not necessarily questions, but just sort of comments with regarding the rebuttal.
Well, we'll get to the rebuttal in a moment. We'll hear the rebuttal first, then you can ask your questions on that. Any questions on the initial presentation here?
No questions.
Michelle, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, I have no questions at this time. Mr. Newfield, we'll hear the rebuttal.
Thank you. And this is just income and expense forms that have been sent to the city beginning in 2015. And they just show the income and the expenses over time. Just what I'd said earlier. They had a really high expense here, as you can see in the 2015 operating year, and a lot of repair that year. We weren't relying particularly on that one, but going on to 2016, it stabilized out, and that number kept fairly constant from that time period, in and around 360,000. And city asks for these forms, they get these forms, and then they don't use them. I think they should use them. Thank you. That's all I had to say on that.
Okay, questions, Mr. Wong, on the rebuttal?
I guess it's just more. For the years 2014 and 2015, their repair and maintenance are at 231,000 and 371,000. Do you know what is involved? What is included in that repair and maintenance? Is there any capital expenditure included?
Well, no, it's not capital that's on here. There was a
no, but I'm asking, do you know?
Well, you asked two questions. Do I know, and is it capital?
Yes.
So no, it's not capital. Two, it was repair. They had a foundation problem and that's what showed up in those years. And I've been in the building, and there's it and its sister property next door, brother property maybe, sister. They're the same building, and they have shifting. And they had a big cost one year to repair it. We're not relying on those. So my point on rebuttal is look at the stabilized amount. It's never dropped below 344,000.
Well, I guess maybe what I was a little bit concerned about is that you said that there was no capital. At the same time, you also said that they did some foundation repairs.
Yeah, it's repair.
Is that not capital?
No, that's repair.
Okay.
Capital is making an improvement.
And repairing the foundation is not making an improvement?
No, it's repair.
Okay, I guess maybe our definitions of capital is maybe not the same.
No. Well, look, I'll give you a comparison. If you do a roof, you've got a 20-year life. It's part capital, part repair. You amortize it over the length that the roof will be expected to live, 20 years, and that's how it's expensed. You have a foundation problem, you fix it. You don't know if the problem's coming back next year. You cannot amortize an unknown, so therefore you call it a repair.
Okay, I guess maybe my thinking on the matter of the income and expenses is that it appears that they do include capital expenditure in their repair and maintenance, and I'm not sure how reliable the repair and maintenance figures can be for valuation purposes. And in my experience, in looking at appraisals, this number would not be used for valuation purposes, and that's why I feel it was more accurate to use the expense ratio that the model has utilized for this property. And I guess that would be all my comments regarding the rebuttal information.
Well, we'll treat that as a question, and you're entirely incorrect. The high costs were not relied upon. We stabilized at 350,000 of expenses. The years you're bringing into question One was 584,000, the other was 440,000. The rest of the years brought in were in and around 344 to 366. We settled on 352. So I think your statements are completely out of line and a misrepresentation.
Okay, we've heard the comments from both parties then. Michelle, do you have any questions on the rebuttal?
Not- you.
I have none either. Okay, that brings us to the end of that property. No summation required by either party?
No, thank you.
I think you had it.
Yeah, but okay. So we'll go to item number 2, 1048 Grant. Mr. Assessor, when you're ready. Are you there?
Yes, I'm just sort of putting everything in place.
Okay,
Okay, the subject property is 1048 Grant. The roll number is 120-158-56100. The file number is 22-2000. This is a residential apartment block that's 2 stories high. It was built in 1963 and it has 32 suites with 28 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. On page 4 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $893 to get a potential income of $343,000. We used a 3.2% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $332,000. And we used a 47% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $174,000. Capped at 5.85%, the estimated value is $2,981,000. On page 5 are some rent comparables showing that the rents we've used are in line with what's in the market. On page 6 is a summary of the 2020 income statement supplied by the owner. Their income was $341,000 and their expenses were $165,000, giving a net operating income of $176,000. The actual net operating income of $176,000 supports the model at $174,000. On page 7 and 8 is information on how we derived our cap rates and some cap rate sales that range from 3.6 to 5.74%. The remainder is the income statement supplied by the owner. So when you look at the actual performance of the property, it is supported by the it does support the model. So I ask that you maintain the assessed value at $2,981,000.
okay, that's your presentation.
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Neufeld?
Yes, on the last property we heard was built in 1965, next across the street, 6% cap. This one, 1963, 5.85%. Wouldn't you expect the cap rate to be similar or higher than the newer property?
I would expect it to be similar, and in my view, 5.85 is similar to 6%.
That's my question.
Okay, Michelle, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
And I have no questions at this point. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Neufeld, we'll hear your evidence.
Thank you. So this property is owned and operated by the same company that you're going to hear 5 of their properties today, 1025 Grant being one of them, operated in the same method. You can see our NOIs, and I put in rebuttal evidence, and I can refer to it, but I can tell you what's in there. I just put in 6 years of statements, same as I did for all their properties. In this case, their 6 years of statements actually are very close to supporting the assessor's income. There are just some minor differences in our stabilization, in that we do the same thing all the time as we looked at the performance and try to stabilize it over time. I think that for purposes today, we're fine with the assessor's NOI of 170. What was that? 174,000. I mean, because it's a very minor variance. On principle, though, I think the concept of the cap rate is and the expense ratio has to be looked at. We heard earlier 44% was the right number for expense ratio. Here we got this building 48%, or sorry, what was the assessor's number? 47.5%. So they really don't have a consistent model, and the cap rate, you should have expected a higher cap rate with an older building. Our view of it is that it's really not much here, so I don't want to waste, and well, not wasted time. I don't want to spend a lot of time on a minor variance here, but the same issue in terms of parking stalls. It's a little below what you would need to see for legal conforming use, but still, more stalls means better income. It's a smaller sized building, and traditionally, investors like to see larger buildings because it spreads the risk out on more numbers of units. And these are very, very minor issues. The difference between this building and the last one we looked at, it does not have any history of foundation problems. So we had our calculation of the cap was 6.1, which we rounded to 6%. And that's really our issue here. It should have a higher cap rate. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Any questions, Mr. Wong?
No questions.
Michelle, questions?
No questions, thank you.
And I have none. So we'll conclude that one and proceed to the next property, 1155 Grant. When you're ready, Mr. Wong.
Okay. The subject property is 1155 Grant Avenue. The roll number is 120-157-33200. The file number is 22-2731. It's a residential apartment block that's 11 stories high. It was built in 1966, and it has 88 suites with 50 indoor parking stalls and 14 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. On page 4 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $1,111 to get a potential income of $1,173,000. We use a 3.2% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $1,136,000, and we used a 48% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $580,000. Capped at 6.05%, we have an estimated market value of $9,601,000. On page 5, our rent comparables showing the rents we've used are in line with what's in the market. On page 6 is a summary of the income and expenses supplied by the owner. You'll notice the property, the income has went from $1,173,000 in 2007 to $8,837,000 in 2008, and then has dropped all the way down to $866,000 in 2020. So it appears that this building is transitioning a little bit. You'll also notice that the vacancy went from 0% to 27% in 2020. So to try to estimate their net operating income for this building that's in transition, you can see the middle chart on my page 6. I used their potential income in 2020, which is 1,152,000, and applied the model vacancy at 3.2% to get an effective gross income of 1,115,000. And I averaged their expenses from 2017 to 2020 to get the expenses are 503,000 to estimate their net operating income to be 612,000. So that estimation of 612,000 supports the model at 580,000. Okay, so moving on to page 7 and 8. 7 and 8 is information on how we derived our cap rates and some cap rate sales that range from 3.6% to 5.74%. And page 10 is the income statement supplied by the owner. And if you go to page 14, in their revenue portion of their 2018 statement, you can see that there's a revenue of $12,750,000. And according to the line item, it's the sale of the building. So it appears that the building was sold for $12,750,000, and that supports a higher value than what the assessed value is at, in terms of it being $9,601,000. So when we try to estimate the net operating income, it seems to be about 30,000 higher than what the model has estimated, and this appears that the sale of the building for 12.75 million also supports the model value. So I ask that you maintain the assessed value at 9,601,000. And that's my presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Neufeld, questions?
Yes. So I'm just puzzled by this comment about. Sorry, I just wanted to get the on your page 6. You're showing income and expense of second column of 8.8 million. So you factored in this sale that you believe happened into this. Is that correct?
That's included, yes.
What's it doing in income and expense?
It's not. It's just showing that number to see that that line item in that mailer year.
Well, it doesn't belong in an income and expense summary, does it?
No.
Okay, because you know that's capital, right?
That's the sale price. I don't think it's capital.
If it happened. Now, I happened to, while you were talking, opened up title search on it. There's no title transaction, is there?
I'm not sure. Maybe you can help us clarify.
Well, the question is for you. Do you have a title transaction?
I do not.
And I'm looking at page 2. You actually only have one sale listed in 2003. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, when you recreate it, or the page 4, I take it is all model driven.
Yes.
Okay, and the income you mentioned, you thought that it was similar to the income of which year?
Pardon me?
You had said that your calculations supports the income, and I thought I heard you say it, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, the net operating income.
The net operating income, which of 580,000. I'm looking at page 6. I don't see that it's ever hit 580,000, has it?
Not as a 1 year. It would be a stabilized number.
And are you referring to the box at the bottom of page 6, or the middle, roughly, the second
Yes.
box? Where does that income come from?
It's their 2020 potential.
2020 potential, is that in where is that in your statement?
On page 10.
Okay. So on page 10, I see potential rent, and of course this is for 12 months. It says 1246 with 333,000 of vacancy. How do you get from that number to the numbers you put in?
Well, what if you subtract? If their rent potential is 1,246,000, and if you subtract their discounts, that would be their potential. The discounts of 93,000.
Okay, so you just subtracted the discounts, not their vacancy, though.
Their vacancy is not part of what its potential is.
Well, okay, well, fine. So that's where you got potential. Then the follow up would be, you then put the vacancy in at 3.2%, but that's not what page 10 shows, does it?
Page 10 shows a very high vacancy. It appears that they are doing some work to the building and they are transitioning. I mean, if you look at their vacancy a few years ago, it was near 0%. So I think applying a 3.2% vacancy seems very reasonable.
Sorry, do you know for certain that this work was going on?
I do not.
I'm just, so you're speculating that based on this, and so you're applying what you see as a market vacancy instead of to what they've claimed here, correct?
Yes. Like I said, their vacancy for their vacancy for 2007 is 0%. Their vacancy for 2018 is 0.1%. So I think that's a little bit more in line with how the building normally operates.
This statement is January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020, correct?
It appears so.
Did you do a permit search?
No.
No, I guess maybe I should introduce this into rebuttal, but I'm looking at a permit search. There was one permit in 2020 for a sign. You didn't search that and determine that there was no open work going on?
I didn't do a permit search.
Okay.
But what I will say is that the vacancy rate of 27% going from 0% is an anomaly, and there's something going on there.
What's going on then?
I don't know.
Okay, so you don't know, why did you assess it without knowing?
We're trying to look at it as if it was a market value property.
Those are my questions, thanks.
Okay, Michelle, questions?
No, they've been asked. No further questions.
Okay, I just have a question about this sale. Point me, Mr. Wong, to this $12,700,000 sale. Where do you find that?
On page 14.
Let me get the 14. Okay. I see a 12 in sale of building. And that's what the owner reported?
Yes.
You reported a sale of building of $12,750,000.
If you look down the revenue column, the very last item on the revenue column, or the second to last item, is sale of building.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
Okay, and if you go over, it's $12,750,000.
Yeah, right. That's what they reported to you.
Yes.
Very good. Well, we'll hear from more Mr. Neufeld on that. Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Neufeld, your presentation.
Yeah, I just had a follow up on that question. Did the city send out a sales questionnaire?
I don't believe so.
So you don't have any other information other than what you're looking at. Okay.
Other than what the reporter has, the owner has reported, no.
Okay.
Any more questions, Mr. Neufeld? That's it?
That's it.
Okay, I think we've covered the questions. And your presentation, Mr. Neufeld.
Okay. There was just a couple of surprises here, and I really don't like belaboring these points. But I guess I have to send this in. I didn't know what the assessor was going to be testifying as. So I'm going to send you the title search, which it's an abbreviated style of title search, and the permits, which contradict with everything what he was saying. So it just I'm just PDFing it right now, and I'll send it to the board and to Mr. Wong. And then I'll start with my presentation. The property did have some work done on it in 2019. You'll see in the rebuttal that permits have been closed into 2019. So the revenue and the expenses that they're looking at, sorry, get my head back on. The income they're looking at is impacted by a couple of factors. It's going to be the first couple of years of any project. You're going to have high vacancies to start with, and the fact that the rents hadn't been proven. So this does make it quite difficult to try to do evaluation on what the income will be in the future when we're faced with the Municipal Assessment Act, which tells us not to go into the future. We do know that the first year after completion of all the work, and what you'll see on the permit is that the last permit was closed in the major permit was closed August 22nd, 2019. So the full year of income is the full year of income, and it would be expected to continue onwards. We in Manitoba, we assess every 2 years. So 2 years from now, maybe it'll be higher. But at that point in time, then the value will be different. Right now, it's not. You're trying to determine the market value of a project that it was in limbo. So the statement, we've used the same one on our page 3, and worked out what they're actually making and made it a stab at stabilizing it. And you can see that what we did on page 1 is the actual income is 866,000. We stabilized it to 937,000. So we did reduce the vacancy, and the expenses were just an average of the 2 years of expenses to operate the property, and we came up with a NOI of 438,000. That is a slightly higher expense ratio than what we've previously seen, but the reason why it would be higher is because the elevator and the underground parking, they're much more expensive to operate. They drive a higher expenses for any building, and that has to be taken into account. We've capped it at 6%, and unlike the assessor, who seems to raise his caps rates as the buildings get newer, 6.05 this time, we're at 6% again. We're trying to be consistent. This would come in and around 6% on this style of building. We'll accept 6.05. That's fine, but I think reasonably we're trying to stay consistent with the age and the type of building it is at 6%. I think the real factor here is how do you treat this income after a major work's been done. In most buildings, after major work is done, will stabilize to 10-15% vacancy within a few months. And that's why we've gone from the actual 866 to up to 937,000. You would expect this vacancy to ratchet for the next 5 years until it stabilizes. I think this is a fair number. And this is a property where you're going to wait 2 years from now to catch up. This isn't the way, the mistake here is to try to guess what's going to happen in the future. The law says we don't guess. We deal with what we have in front of us, and 2 years from now, a reassessment comes out. That's my presentation. Ben, there's nothing, the rebuttal I just sent in, and I can address it, but it's very brief.
You have that, received that?
Yeah, it's in the folder, Mr. Chair.
You received it?
Yeah.
You just want to say anything about it, Mr. Neufeld?
Yeah, I mean, the page 1 is from a search called Sabre. This is a database that's shared by both the Appraisal Institute and Realtors and City of Winnipeg Assessment Department. So you look up 1155 Grant, 1 sale listed. If it cleared titles, it would be listed there. So there's no evidence of any sale. There's a line item in a statement. It could refer to, this is a very large company, the sale of any assets. It's not proven. You don't have it to review. It doesn't, there's no relevance to it. I blocked off the page 2. These are the permits that are tracked now in the city, and I blocked off the second line, and I still have it on my screen. It just says HRV unit, closed November 18. The top line reads erect a new sign. That was closed in February 20. Signs no value. The third one is electrical energy system alteration, closed September of 18. Electrical upgrade closed August of 19, and electrical. The major one is the 6 down interior exterior alterations, closed August 22nd, 2019. So permits have been closed. The building was in full operation. It's performing as to be expected, and will be performing at this income value for several years. And again, you're not assessing your predictions for the future. That's all the rebuttal says.
Thank you. Mr. Wong, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, Michelle, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Neufeld, the primary question here seems to be the NOI, which is $150,000 less than the assessors. So that NOI, is that a 1-year situation? Have you stabilized that NOI in some sense?
I'm just trying to see if I've got a newer statement on this. Sometimes we have them.
Like a newer statement, like post-reference statements?
Well, it's to determine whether or not a prediction comes true. I do not have a newer one. All I have is this current one. I think when you're looking at our page 3, we have 866,000 in income. So this is representative of the year when the building was fully fit for occupancy, an average of the whole year. So
sorry, where's that you're looking?
On my page 3.
No. And talking about total revenue?
Yeah. Essentially, you see the residential vacancy, 333,000, and the potential, and there's discounts. So what I see here is what I would do is add up the 333 plus the discount of 93, and then divide that by potential 1246. So you're 34%. That was the average for the year of 2020. So my from experience, what I see in these projects in second year is that drops that vacancy to a number, probably for the whole year, it probably stabilized in around 20%, which would be, at the end of year, beginning of year, around 35%, end of year, or 12 to 15%. So an average of 20, and then in year 3, we would then be looking at sub 10%. And by year 5, we would hit market. So I think in the reference years that we're looking at here, which would then be the future year of 21 and the future year of 22, we would still have extremely high vacancy. And so that's why we've captured it as, and so we're using a higher vacancy. I can tell at 34, 33, 71. I'm just going to tell you what we used for our stabilized. Unfortunately, it wasn't listed here, but yeah, we stabilized at 25% for this period, which is the 20 year at 34%, and then considering future years at sub 20 rates. I think that's until it's proven, you don't really know what it's going to be at. This is a 1966 high rise on Grant. The problem is that they put themselves up into an amount of revenue that where they're competing now with this is almost $1,200 a month rent that's asking. So at that rate, you can go down the street and get a new one in beside IKEA, or a new one in the refinery district. So that's my concern here. I think you're still good. It's still going to suffer a bit on the vacancy. An example, this is a very interesting example. Page 5. We did a case study on this property on Ward, and we're reporting it as a cap rate sale, but that was built in 2006. And it stabilized its vacancy rates. It took 7-8 years to do so, and every year they would get to about 10% vacancy, and at the end of year, 20-30 unit holders would leave because the guy down the street had a discount for 1 month free, and then they start the process all over. So it's not a finite calculation. I would agree with anyone who had said that vacancy is undefined, but that was our best guess, best estimate. We don't guess, we estimate. But the problem's going to cure itself in 2 years when the new assessments come out, coincidentally.
Okay, any summary, Mr. Wong?
Yes, I'd just like to say that to sort of evaluation, it doesn't happen in terms of a one moment in time. So if something sort of dips for 1 year or 2 years, valuation would not happen along those lines. Valuation is sort of a projected long-term performance of the property. And in my view, the projected long-term performance of this property, it wouldn't operate at a 10, 20, or 30% vacancy. So I don't think we should value it as such. And the numbers that I put forth are as if it was how it would perform in the long term. And so I ask that you maintain the assessed value.
Thank you. A summation, Mr. Neufeld?
I partially agree with what the assessor just said, but we have a legislated period, and that's 2 years. Well, last cycle was 3 years. That's the time period to consider for the concept of stabilization. You don't look at the building's performance on a long-term basis, because then you miss what the legislators had in mind, which is, well, then why don't we have a reference date every 10 years? Forget about this whole stabilize. They said 2 years. And that's the story here. It's going to have a bad time for 2 years. The concept here is, imagine a forced sale, not a forced sale, but a sale today, or April 1st, 2021, with the performance it has. An investor is going to look at this revenue and expense sheet and say, well, yeah, maybe it'll fill up. Maybe 2-3 years from now it'll fill up. But I want my revenue today. So there's going to be a discount, and that's what we've tried to reflect. Not the actual poor performance. We did upgrade it a bit. Thank you. That's my summary.
Thank you very much. That concludes, excuse me, that concludes 1155 grant. So we'll pass on to item number 4. Is 1515 Pembina Highway. Mr. Assessor, when you're ready.
Mr. Wong, you have mute.
We lost him?
No.
Thank you. The subject property is 1515 Pembina Highway. The roll number is 030-701-05100. The file number is 22-2635. This is a residential apartment block. It's 2 stories high. It was built in 1960, and it has 17 suites with 17 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. On page 4 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $912 to get a potential income of $197,000. We use the 4.2% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $188,000, and we use the 49% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $95,000. Capped at 5.15% to have an estimated market value of $1,852,000. On page 5, our rent comparable showing the rents we've used are in line with what's in the market. On the bottom of page 5 are some expense comparables that range from 43 to 50%. This supports the 49% the model has applied. On page 6 is our revised value calculation. The reported income for 2020 is 163,000, and that's higher than what the model has estimated at 188,000. So I'm revising my value using the model expense ratio of 49% and giving a net operating income of 82,000, capped at 5.15%. I'm revising my value to 1,608,000. And on page 7 is a comparable sale. The revised value is valued at $104 a square foot. The sale of 1139 Grant at $132 a square foot supports the revised value that I'm recommending. And somebody was, I guess they were talking about the relevance of comparable sales, and we're trying to, and comparable sales are relevant in valuation. And I just want to show that the values that we're coming up with are supported by the market, and that's why I have the comparable sale in there. On page 8 and 9 is information on how we derived our cap rates and some cap rate sales that range from 3.6% to 5.74%. And on page 11 is the income statement supplied by the owner. So the revised rent that I've applied is supported by the market and the actual rents, and the model cap rate and expense ratio is supported by the market. Also, the revised value at $104 a square foot is supported by the sale of 1139 Grant at $132 a square foot. The assessed value is supported by the market and by the actual. So I ask that you maintain the assessed value at $1,852,000.
Oh, very good. I'm going to have questions, Mr. Newville.
So what you've done here is similar to what we had heard earlier, where you took the model and adjusted the model, which would be on page 4, and adjusted it for actual potential income from the statements. Is that what you did?
Yes.
And again, as in the other case, there was no adjustment to the expense ratio. You maintained that ratio?
Yes.
This building is our oldest today so far, and I note that it also gets the lowest cap rate. Don't you think you're moving in the wrong direction?
I believe that the cap rates that we have yield accurate estimates of value.
Okay, and so you're not concerned that this is an even older building and it's almost a full point lower than what the model generated in previous appeals today?
I'm not sure about the previous years, but when you look at the estimate of value, it does appear to be it is representative of the market, as the sale of 1139 Grant can attest to.
Well, I'm looking on page 2. Well, you've got a sale there. What was wrong with that one? Of the subject?
It is a reasonable. The sworn value of $1,262,000 is reasonable. The market has changed significantly over the years, and so I believe that the current assessed value is in line with that sale price.
Current assess in line with it. Well, and did you look into that sale?
I did not.
Okay. This sale, and you're the one who brought up the sale information, so not me. So that was dated February of 17. Now your sale that you're looking at for Reliance was dated. Sorry, just had this here. Was that 2018?
Yes.
1139 grand. So a few months after, that sale is okay to use, but not the subject sale.
I think I like that. I think they both would be okay to use. But if you adjusted the sale on page 7 upward from 2018 to the reference period of 2021, the value would be higher.
And how would you adjust that? What's the basis for adjustment?
I'm just saying that the market has increased over those periods. I mean, if you're talking about being able to provide minute adjustments for, they're not available, and so we do the best we can with the information that we have. And the information that I've seen is that the market has gone up.
Did you present any of that information?
That's my observations.
Okay, well, and sorry, I was just marking something else to ask. Those are my questions. Thanks.
Michelle, any questions?
Yeah, just to be clear, the recommended value now is 1,608,000, correct? You had mentioned to uphold your valuation of 1,852, but I just wanted
my apologies. What I meant to say was like for you to accept my revised value of 1,608,000, which is on my page 1.
Great, thank you. Questions for me?
Okay, Mr. Newcroft, your presentation.
Yes, thank you. So I should probably refer to this sale first. This is the one the assessor has quoted. This was half owned by the current owner and half owned by another individual. The current owner is Gopher, and this is the same property owner as the two we've previously heard on Grant. They are Smith agencies. So they did own half this building, and in 2017, they bought the other half from the other owner. And so that's why it's listed as that. It was a transaction, money changed hands, and that's why it was listed the way it was listed. That represents half the value that was sold. The concept of partial interest sales is interesting in that, it depends. There's 6 factors that go into it, and I'm not going to get into all of them, but the bottom line is sometimes it's higher than market, sometimes it's lower than market, and someone should do their investigation first. I just happen to know that it went higher than market because there was an existing relationship, and they decided that they would buy this other party out by obtaining 100% control over it. They felt that that was the way to go. But we're not doing this on the sale. It's just out there. The actual income is significantly lower than what the assessor has stated. And the major reason is interesting in this building is that upon gaining control of the property, they found that the upkeep on the site had been neglected, and so it's undergone every time a unit is vacated, they spend a little bit more money on replacing things. They have a system of doing it, and these items are all expenses, such as cabinets, refrigerators, plumbing fixtures, short-lived items, true expenses, and that's one of the reasons why the expenses have shown averaged higher over the time. Now, the person who did this report really wasn't aware of the history of the property in that regard. I think personally I would have been focused on the year immediately after sale, which was 2018. That produced the highest NOI in the last several years. And I also sent in that for rebuttal. And you can see the performance over the years. The way to stabilize is to look at a year where those expenses were under a greater control, but they will also continue on in the future because there's 17 units and the expenditures doing turnovers, you might be doing 2, 3, 4 units a year. So we're several years away from any sort of stabilization. It will stabilize closer to the 2018 performance. And you'll also notice something about the 2018 performance is that the revenue also happened to be higher that year, because as you close a unit down for a bit more detailed rehab, you also keep it off the market. So I would submit that we should really be looking at that NOI, the 71,768, as representing a more stabilized viewpoint. And unlike the property just before this isn't an a complete workover. This is a suite by suite takeover, makeover. So actually, I would like to just revise the number to 71,768, and at the same cap rate, with which is a value of 1,148,288, 1,148,288, which would round to 1,148,000. The fact that the number is below last year's is not really relevant because there were a number of appeals that were being cleaned up on this property at the municipal board, and there was actually a 3-year deal done for on the same issue we're discussing today for 16, 18, and 20. So that's why those numbers, they were, I don't even know if that's the final number. It was a settlement number. And it was all pretty much all dealing with the same issue of this great amount of work that has to be done with it. And in terms of the cap rate, the issues, why this one would be slightly higher than the others is because there's a great deal of work that still has to be done on a unit by unit turnover. So it's not going to make maximum money for several more years. And when that maximum, it'll come back to around the 70,000 number, probably. Well, RTB's frozen rates right now. So the hope for rate growth is rather marginal. But I could see it going up a few $1,000s just on efficiencies, but because that's a future requirement to do the work, it impacts the cap rate downwards, and that's referenced on my page 2. The other part of it is this is 17 units, and what you see in something like this, and even the assessment sometimes picks it up, is that smaller properties, smaller unit counts get higher expense ratios because most of the costs are fixed. So they don't, if you have a greater number of units, your expense ratio will be lower because they get spread out over more units. And that's a negative on the cap rate. Because if you have a major issue, I mean, the one I always like to point out is every apartment block has 2 doors, front and rear, and whether it's got 100 units or 15 units. So if you got to do a new door, the expense gets divided over, in this case, 17 units or 88 units. That's it. These are minor factors, but this is just what we look at on the building size where we say small. The assessor made a comment earlier about cap rates. He thought they got better. Well, they didn't. And the on page, my book, my thing is page 30. this is the Colliers National Cap Rate Study. So just bear in mind that this isn't just Winnipeg, and this is national. But when you look at by asset type, Winnipeg never made the cut here, as you can see. Multifamily being the dark blue between 17 and 21. I mean, there's really no apparent change on these cap rates. The market isn't doing it now. Well, because I did direct you to that page, just point out that when we report cap rates of properties in Colliers, we also have definitions, and the definitions are on page 26, and under multifamily, high rise, low rise. This property, none of these properties today fit the definition. They're too old and too much deferred maintenance. These are for modern assets that are more desirable for investors. And when we explain our ranges on page 25, when you look at multifamily, a range of 5 to 6%, well, that's the good product, not mediocre product like we're looking at today. And that's why we're above 6. That's my presentation. And the rebuttal, I don't know if I need to address it, but it just shows you the history of the property over the 6 years. It's never, ever performed the way the assessor has envisioned. Thank you.
Let me be clear that you're asking for a value of 1,148,000.
That's correct.
Correct. Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Wong, questions?
No questions.
Okay, Michelle?
Yeah, just, so the, you haven't suggested any revision to your cap rate of 6.25, right? It remains 6.25?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? That's it? Okay, I don't think I have any questions. Thank you. So that would conclude 1575 Pembina. Go on to the next property, which is, pardon me, that was 1515 Pembina. We'll go on to 1088 Corden.
Just wondering if I might have 2 minutes.
By all means, we'll take a short break.
Okay,
Is that what you mean?
that's what I mean.
Okay, let's take a 5-minute break then.
Yes.
Thank you.
What? Your lunch, Jim.
Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. And we'll go on to item number 5, which is 1088 Corden Avenue. Mr. Wong, when you're ready.
Okay, the subject property is 1088 Borden Avenue. The roll number is 12030574100. The file number is 22-1969. This is a residential apartment block that's 2 stories high. It was built in 1968, and it has 18 suites with 12 outdoor parking stalls. On page 2 is the sales history for the subject property. The property sold in 2013 for $1,725,000. On page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. On page 4 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $1,002 to get a potential income of $216,000. We use a 3.2% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $209,000, and we used a 45% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $113,000. Capped at 5.6%, we have an estimated market value of $2,030,000. On page 5 are some rent comparables, showing that the rents we've used are in line with what's in the market. And on the bottom of page 5 are some expense comparables that range from 43 to 50%, which supports the model expense ratio of 45.75%. On page 6 is a revised value, is a recommended revised value. The actual income is about 191,000, which is lower than the 209,000 that the model is estimated. So I'm revising my value using the 2020 income and the model expense rate at 45%, giving an NOI of 103,000 and capped at 5.6%. I'd like to recommend the revised value of 1,856,000. And which is a little bit higher than what it sold for in 2013. On page 7 and 8 is information on how we derived our cap rates, with some cap rate sales that range from 3.6 to 5.74%. And the remainder is the income mailer supplied by the owner. So the revised rent is supported by the actuals and is supported by the market. The expenses and cap rate are also supported by the market, and the revised value is also supported by the sale, the 2013 sale of 1,725,000. So I ask that you accept the revised value of 1,856,000.
Okay, questions, Mr. Neufeld?
Thank you. What do you know about the sale?
All I know is that it's a bona fide sale.
So you say bona fide. How do you know it's bona fide?
The exchange was it was reviewed by a coworker, and it was deemed to be a bona fide sale.
Did you? Was there a questionnaire on that?
I'm not sure.
Did your coworker tell you the results of their review with me and the owner?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so this is somebody's opinion that it was bona fide, but you don't have the comments that were made at the time, do you? I know because I was involved. You don't have those, do you?
No.
Okay. And in this case, model generated page 4, and you changed with the same formula as before. You changed it to 191,000 income and maintain the expense ratio and the cap rate. That's what you did. The similar to
Yes.
Okay. And again, I'm looking at the cap rate again. So this is your newest property, but certainly not your lowest cap rate. So again, are you suggesting that there should be some? Are you suggesting that there need be no consistency in these cap rates, or do you know why this happened?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the differences in the cap rates, but like I said, with regards to it yields accurate estimates of value, and so it is comparable to the sales that happen in the market.
The expense ratio, we've heard a number of expense ratios today between 44 and 49%. This was model generated.
Yes.
And when I look at the statement that they provided you, page 10, it appears that the owner is paying for all utilities. You see that?
Yes.
And so I think that was, those are my questions. Thanks.
Very good. Michelle, questions?
No questions at this time.
Just a question about the revised recommendation, 1,856,000. That is because you reduced the income stream?
The income.
You reduced the income?
Yes.
And you reduced it because of their mailer?
Yes.
Okay, so that was your rationale for doing it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Neufeld, your presentation.
Thank you. Just one sec. I had to write a number down here. Thank you. There's this property is same ownership as the three other ones. This is a Smith Agency property on Corridon. You can tell the familiarity by looking at the handwritten statements. They acquired this from the previous owner who was their client. They had an existing business relationship. I made it clear when the city came to inspect it and they asked questions about the sale. This was, I think, back in 2015 or 16, that this was not an arm's length transaction. This was a sale between business parties, and that it was not exposed to the market at all. So the sale carries no weight, and I'm just disappointed. We keep hearing this story. The city sends out their mailers, but they don't listen to the answers. And I'm not saying this particular assessor, but I'm just saying that systematically, you send out a mailer, you penalize people for not sending it back to you, but when you do get the mailer, you don't listen to or read what it says. Now, in my rebuttal, I've also sent in their previous 6 years of statements as well. The issue with this property is the same as all the Smiths you're going to hear today, except the one was that they're not looking at the expenses information. We're not disputing the 191,000, and you see on page 1 that was considerably higher than 2018 and 2019 because there was work being done in 18 and 19, and it was finished by I think early 19. And the income of 191,000 was as full, no issue there at all. Then the other issue is going to be looking at the expenses. What we've used to stabilize the expenses is the previous year's operating costs. And when you look at the last year that was declared, which was 2020, and that's listed on page 4. Sorry, I'm gonna make sure I'm looking at the right one here. Yes, actually, we have. Why do I have two statements here? Just 1 second. Let me figure out what's happening here. May 6, 2021. Okay, so the last statement submitted was on page 3, and that was the 191,000 in income, 26,000 maintenance and repair. That's $1,400 per unit. That is well within a normal range for maintenance and repair. So I just want to point that out to you that there's nothing abnormal about this statement, and that's showing an NOI of 73,000, and we've stabilized that to 75,000 just because we're averaging out previous years. You'll note that the expenses I sent in on rebuttal will have some expenses. I think I should probably, I'm just looking at 15 was normal. Oh, there we go. The bad year was 2017 for expenses, and that's when they had the most. In this case, this was not upgrades at all. This was deferred maintenance on the property, taking it over from a former business partner. You don't always have a knowledge of how much work needs to be done to bring it back up to snuff, and they did spend a fair bit more money in 2017, but that's not showing on the statements we provided you. We started at 18 after it was all done, and using the income from 20, which shows as it returned to normal. And I think you heard me state earlier about the property on 1155 Grant, how it takes a few years to stabilize after your major work. This major work was done in 2017. It wasn't until 2020 that the income stabilized, and that's what we're using. And that's just an indication of the way life works in the apartment world. So I believe our income of 75,000 is very, very reasonable. The expense ratio is on the higher side, but that's a reflection of 18 units and the way the expenses are. The Smith properties are almost all fully gross in that they pay utilities, and you can see that on the statements of the claim. They pay full utilities, so it does run a higher expense ratio. In terms of cap rate, I was just reviewing this. I would probably suggest a slightly lower cap rate because I think the person who prepared this didn't know the building like I do, in that they saw a lot of expenses, and I'm saying no. Unlike the previous building we heard, 1515 Pembina, in this case, the expenditures are done. So I think rather than 6.5, it should be 6.25. And a minor change, but I really want to be consistent. So at 6.25, the value is 1,208,144, 1,208,144, rounded to 1,208,000. In the previous assessment, that's not accurate. There have been a number of case management results on it. I didn't look them up today, but the number was changed on this. It's a building that has generated a lot more appeal history than it deserves. But I think that everything's been resolved in the old years. All I can say is that those are not the numbers. They did go downwards. So nothing new to add other than just the background on it, and looking at the actual income. Thank you.
Okay, questions, Mr. Wong?
No questions.
Michelle, questions?
I apologize if I missed it somewhere. What was the vacancy rate for 2020? Yeah.
Let me just, it's on a different document. I don't know if the assessor put in the full sheet or not.
I have the city assessor's vacancy rate at 3.2. I just was wondering what you had it at.
Yeah, I have to find it. Oops, wrong property. There's on the first page of the form, there's let me just check his document here for a second. The tracking of it is a little bit different, so let's just see what he put in the whole form. On page, yes, the assessor's page 11. Oh, okay, so it's a little bit different on this property than others. You can see that they have it listed with parking and rent at 232,000, and they achieved 191. What we are seeing here is the residential tenancies branch registered rents, not the actual physical vacancy. So everybody, when they had the work, all the deferred maintenance that was done in 2017, they applied for an above guideline increase. They got the approval, but they didn't enact it into the rents. They have the ability to raise the rents, but they feel the market won't bear it. So this 232 is, every property is different. There's no rule that goes from one to the other. I'm just wanting to look at one more document. I'll give you a better estimate of what the vacancy was. Oh, I just realized I was looking in my wrong file. Approximately, I'm going to say about 4% cash vacancy, and the rest is the variance on the residential tenancies registered rent potential. So
Okay,
about, it's about a market rate.
thank you.
Okay, any summation by anybody?
Oh, thank you.
Mr. Wong?
Oh, thank you.
No, Mr. Neufeld, any summation?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Okay, very good. That concludes that property. We'll go on to item number 6, which is Thurso Street, 223 Thurso Street. Okay, when you're ready, Mr. Wong.
Okay, the subject property is 223 Thurso Street. The roll number is 120-310-24000. The file number is 22-2695. This is a residential apartment block that's 2 stories high. It was built in 1953 and it has 8 suites with 4 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is a picture of our subject property with its location. On page 4 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $801 to get a potential income of $76,000. We used a 3.2% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $74,000. And we used a 46% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $39,000. Kept at 5.65%, we have an estimated market value of $701,000. On page 4 are our rent comparables, showing that the rents we've used are in line with what's in the market. On the bottom of page 5 are some expense comparables that range from 43 to 50%. That supports the model's 46%. On page 6 is a comparable sale. The current assessed value is at $95 a square foot, and the sale of 1088 Corden at $107 a square foot supports the assessed value. On page 7 and 8 is information on how we derived our cap rates, with some cap rate sales that range from 3.6 to 5.74%. And on page 10 is the mailer. And on page 10, you can see that their expenses are fairly high, and it comes out to about 74.4%. So I feel that using a market expense ratio is appropriate. So the model rent is in line with actuals and the market. The model expenses and cap rate are supported by the market, and the model value at $96 a square foot is supported by the sale of 1088 Corden, which is $107 a square foot. So I ask that you maintain the assessed value at $701,000.
Okay, very good. Mr. Neufeld, questions?
Yes, so this property, 1953 construction, and again, the cap rate is much lower than the newer ones we've heard today. at 5.65. What else goes into this that the model may have steered the model in the wrong direction?
I'm not sure how they make the adjustments in the cap rates, but to sort of maybe say that it's in the wrong direction. Like I said, like when you apply these cap rates yield accurate estimates of value, and so in my view, they are very they're very good cap rates because they give accurate estimates of value.
In regard to the expense ratio, which is about the middle of the pack ones we've heard today, considering we only have 8 units, shouldn't the ratio actually be closer to what the actual performance is, with one cost being spread over 8 units instead of 88 units?
Yeah, you can maybe look at it from that standpoint, and that might indicate higher expenses. But like when I look at property sales of properties, I've never seen anything close to 70%. As a matter of fact, I see a lot of like 30 and 40% expense ratios for properties that are sold, and their indicated expenses. So I feel that the 46% that we've applied here is reasonable.
On page 11, they show potential income at 80,000 and actual income at 72,000, which is about a 10% vacancy rate. Does your model account for a high vacancy rate because due to a low unit count, and meaning like one unit goes vacant, that's a major impact on vacancy?
I'm not sure.
Okay, but because this vacancy rate is 3.2%, which is fairly similar to the other ones we've heard today.
And in that case, maybe because it's the same, then maybe it doesn't take that into consideration.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thanks.
Michelle, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
I don't think I have any right here either on this one. Okay, any summation? Mr. Wong?
I think it's Rocky next.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rocky, your presentation. Sorry.
Yes, that's okay.
Skipped over you.
I just wanted to continue on with the thought. Now, the last one I told you about Corden, because I knew for a fact that there were above guideline increases that impacted the stated vacancy rate. I also know for a fact that this property does not have above guideline increases, and therefore the potential rent is the actual face rate rent of $80,000, and the performance is 72,000 or 10%, and that's really the problem with the property. 8 units. This isn't like a typical small apartment. You're often going to find an element of owner occupancy in it, where someone buys a unit and lives in one of them and rents out to the others. It throws off normal investment parameters on real investment properties. Not so in this case. This is again same operators. The other 4 Smith agencies. This is a revenue property, but what you see reflected here is the vacancy is the major issue here. One vacancy on one unit is 12.5%, and they're at 10%. So all you need is 2 turnovers a year, and your vacancy plummets. And that's the problem with the small ones, is that if you're not planning on living in there yourself and you're actually doing the income approach, a small block is of greater risk than a big block, and that's also why the expense ratio gets skewed off. So what we've done is gone back over time, and I've also, as rebuttal, sent in previous years of statements. They have had one good year, and you can see it. It was on my page 1, 2018 didn't have any vacancies that year, or they were lower, and so they're and actually that one was actually lower because the expense ratios were lower that year. Revenue was higher though, but the expense ratio, again, a small block one major expense, and it throws the whole thing off. So that year, I was just looking at the numbers, and I've sent them in to you. It was just low expenses that year. And the income has ranged between 18,000 and 39,000. We've stabilized at 31,000, which is the last year of income and an average of 3 years past performance, which is, I think, and we didn't use the 2020 expense amount because it was just higher. That is an anomaly, and one of the reasons why in the 21 statement was an anomaly on page 3, it's listed there, is they had $4,400 for marketing, which is really high. You would rarely see that high in a building like this. Previous year was $1,500. But that's one of the reasons when we stabilized this one, we looked at 18 and 19's averages, so it skewed it upwards, and 31,000. And you could debate maybe we should have used the revenue from 18 as well, $1,000 higher, possibly. No issue. I wouldn't have an issue with that. We've stabilized at 56%, which is about the ratio you would expect on an 8-suiter, and capped at 6.5. And the major issue is, you obviously, my stories today been fairly consistent, is small. That's an impact on its capability to earn. And it's, in this case, it's obvious. One expense, one vacancy skews that number off. It is not a good investment. So not being a good investment, you cap higher because you have a higher risk. And the errors in the market when we see transactions, as I say, on these small units, is there's usually an element of owner occupancy. And that doesn't mean you adjust for it or you try to use that sale. You toss it out, because that's not an income-based, income-earning property. So the small size and the parking and the issues, 4 stalls for 8 units in the suburbs or quasi-suburbs, whatever you want to call Corydon. Not a great performer, and over the years, I think the greatest issue in trying to explain the smaller properties is that in the true investment world, the small property is not as desirable as the large property. And we're reflecting that. You can see the poor income, the poor risk, the higher vacancy, the higher expense ratio, and a higher cap rate, because you cannot predict, you cannot have a stable income. Investors want stability in their income. The preference is generally stability over stream, and small units don't give that. That's my presentation. Thanks.
Okay, questions, Mr. Wong?
No questions.
Pardon me?
No questions.
Oh, no questions. Okay. Michelle, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Yeah, you're indicating here that the revenue is pretty stable for the years you show there. Vacancy is not a problem in this building?
Yeah, it is. It is. You can. What I sent in was this one is not impacted by RTV registrations. So it does fluctuate a lot on the income side. It is about 10%, and that's why your income is lower.
Okay. You had a rebuttal, Mr. Nickel?
It's just the statements over time and showing the performance of the property. There's I've gone over that verbally already with the variance over time, and I guess it's the point with this property and all these Smith properties is that you just can't come in and argue for a number that doesn't exist and never has existed. In this case, they did get close to the assessor's number 1 year, the lucky year, but 1 year doesn't make a market value. That's what I wanted to say.
No question on the rebuttal, Mr. Wong?
No.
Okay, thank you. I think we've covered that one then. Next item is number 7. Okay, which is Barker Boulevard, 389 Barker Boulevard. When you're ready, Mr. Assessor.
The subject property is 389 Barker Boulevard. The roll number is 010-056-41400. The file number is 22-2717. This is a residential apartment block that's 3 stories high. It was built in 1976, and we have an effective year built of 1986. There are 60 suites with 77 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. On page 4 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $1,123 to get a potential income of $808,000. We use a 3.2% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $782,000. And we used a 46% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $419,000. Kept at 4.9%, we have an estimated market value of $8,565,000. On page 5 are our rent comparables, showing that the rents we've used are in line with what's in the market. On page 6 is a summary of their 2020 income. Their income was $843,000, and they had a vacancy of 0.81%. Their expenses were $627,000, but that included some items that we wouldn't normally include in calculating their operating expenses, such as interest, mortgage, amortization, and appeal fees. So after removing those items, their operating expenses are about $359,000, and their net operating income is $484,000. So their estimated net operating income is about $60,000 higher than what the model is estimated at $419,000. So it's the model income is well supported. On page 7 and 8 is information on how we derived our cap rates, with some cap rate sales that range from 3.6 to 5.74%. And the last few pages is the income statement supplied by the owner. So the market rent and cap rate, they're supported by the model rent and cap rate are supported by the model, and the actual NOI is about $60,000 higher than what the model is estimated. So I ask that you maintain the assessed value at $8,565,000.
Okay, any questions, Mr. Duval?
In this case, page 4, this was all generated by the model?
Yes.
And was this based on an effective year built, or a year built, or whatever year you apply, of 1986?
Yes.
And that was a change from the actual year of 1976.
Yes.
And why did that happen?
There were renovations done to the property.
And when were those renovations done?
I think maybe approximately 2015.
Okay, and what were those renovations?
There were interior alterations.
Okay, and so interior alterations. So there was any change to the frame, foundation?
No, there were interior alterations and exterior alterations, including the siding.
Okay, so siding. And how does that upgrade the property?
The property has been upgraded to a sense to the point where they're able to increase the rents.
But has it changed the year of the building? You didn't change the frame, you didn't change the foundation, you changed mechanical?
Plumbing and electrical. But with regards to the effective year built, it did. I believe that work like this does increase the economic life of the building.
I'm sorry, I'm staring at the permit right now. You said plumbing and electrical. What's the word before plumbing say?
Minor plumbing and electrical work.
Okay, minor plumbing and electrical. Okay, good. I don't have to send this in. Cosmetic work done on this property, and that changes the age of it by 10 years. Is that what the assessment department is saying?
In this case, yes.
Okay. And by changing that, of course, you change the cap rate, probably, or the model does at some point, or it impacts it. We don't know about how much it impacts. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. And those are my questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, what was the total value of the renovations? Did I miss that there?
I think it was approximately 905,000.
905,000 in 2015.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Okay. Very good. Rocky, your presentation.
Thank you. So, boy, I'm glad I was consistent today. So, 2015 renovations, and these were recladding, was what Barker had done to it. There wasn't even a requirement to vacate the units for it. And 5 years later, the income stabilizes. Now, you see, we're not in total disagreement with the assessor. We do have a number of 420,000 for our NOI. But since we're not disputing it, we don't have to go in with his calculation. It's utterly incorrect the way that they've taken out expenses that belong. But the point is that we're at the same as the model. So the issue here is capitalization, and by changing the siding on a building, you don't make it younger. There are 5 elements in the building: the foundation, the framing, the mechanical, the envelope, and the finish. So they dealt with the finish, but they didn't change any of the major ones, nothing. So it doesn't become, you don't change the effective year. You change a bit of curb appeal, but who cares in an investment building? It's all about making money and charging rent and producing a revenue stream. Bottom line, produce a revenue stream that's long and strong. No changes happened on that basis. We call it the coat of paint. So whatever the model would have generated is incorrect based on that. That's the first issue with it. And the second issue is 4.9 doesn't exist in the market. The assessor has without debating too much of their own evidence, they have not brought you evidence of a cap rate. They brought you the story the model told them. Now, a cap rate is a rate of return on property, and in the last 2 years, we're focused on the cycle. There have been very, very few properties transacted in the market. As a result, most all large companies like our own have not been looking strongly at deals because there aren't any. What we're looking at is the gap between mortgages, bond yields, and cap rates. And the concept is real simple. When the income approach came along, there was no such thing as direct capitalization. It was deemed to be far too subjective. And when I became an appraiser, we were trained to look at mortgage equity band of investment. the spread between the cost of borrowing and the potential cap rate. Because the bottom line that all investors wanted to know is, does it make enough income to pay the mortgage? I don't care what the guy down the street sold his for, or what his implied cap was. I got to pay my mortgage, and that's what these sub 5 caps are forgetting. That they do not exist. They're usually because of creative financing that they occur, where somebody has a below market yield or a vendor take back of something of the sort. Page 24 of our report is the Collier's rate. Now, again, we state that they range between 5 and 6%, and this is for the best product. Barker is not the best product. Barker is like the best product is going to be a brand new high rise. And I've argued this at the board. Think of the new blocks that went up around IKEA. That's what's going to generate a 5% cap in and around there. Now, 5% is for the purchaser, not the vendor. And companies like ours, we calculate for the purchaser, which means that we take their closing costs in, which are fees, commissions, and the land titles charges. And so the actual rate for the vendor is about 5.3%. And that's the number we should be focused on as being pretty much the best of the market can deliver. And what we've done in our recent years is showing you on page 23 this is where the foundation of the cap rate is now. It's the gap between bond yields and Government of Canada, the BBB bond yield and the Government of Canada 10-year bond yield and the commercial mortgage rate, and then comparing that to the cap rate and focusing on the spread. So the spread to that Government of Canada 10-year bond is 4 points, and the spread to the 10-year commercial mortgage rate is 2.5 points. And that's what makes an investment. You follow that. And with the rise in interest rates, which was post-reference, you can see how important that really was. The markets followed the same practice. Cap rates went up because you're chasing the same investment money and you need a spread. The description hasn't changed from the last time I mentioned it. This isn't top rate grade. So what we looked at it in terms of investment quality was the page 2. We start with a 5%, which is the Collier's prime. It's the same prime the other real estate companies use. The rating scale is points that change the number on a property on the cap rate out of the perfect score of 100. So if the closing costs, which I mentioned, are the title costs and the commissions are included in ours. So when you adjust for that, 3 to a 0 means that 5.00 becomes 5.18. Location on this is not optimal, being near Charleswood, and nothing against Charleswood. I once lived there, but it's not your hot multifamily market. It's a market that's more dominated by the single family. So when you're talking about a good multifamily market, it's St. Boniface is ranked number 1, and Elmwood is right up there. And there's some newer parts of Fort Garry that are hitting there. It's where your renters go. And you're going to have less vacancies. The configuration being multiple buildings, and the concept behind the multiple buildings is because we have a site that has 5 buildings, which contain 12 units each. So, like I was saying before about the 8-plex, this is 5 12-plexes. Each of these units has 1 entrance door and 1 exit door, which means the cost-wise, and a lot of envelope to cover. If this was a combined building, it'd be a lot less envelope, and less envelope means lower energy costs and less maintenance. So that's the mark we made on that though was only 2 points, which is 0.12 of a cap rate point. That's the math on it. We're not making mass changes and suggesting doom and gloom. We're taking very, very small changes and comparing them to a prime number. And the year built is a minor factor as well. And the income growth potential is our view of this particular market. We just don't see it as being a place where you're going to see rent rate increases. It's too far from the central business district. So that comes to about 5.95%. We've rounded that to 6%, and that's our estimate of the cap rate. And that's our difference here. Thank you.
Okay, questions, Mr. Wall?
Yeah, just I guess regarding your 2020 net operating income, your 2020 expenses are about $420,000, and I calculated about $350,000. I was just wondering if your expenses included the amortization expense in that total.
I don't believe so. No, I mean I don't think we have a dispute with what the model generated. We came up with a stabilized value. We've had 3 solid years of production, 420,000.
Okay. So you don't believe it includes that amortization?
I didn't do the calculation, so I mean I can run through it right now and give you my own opinion on it. But I think the person who does these usually gets it right, so I haven't done the math.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, there's a big difference between what I calculated and what you calculated, and the difference seems to be amortization. And I guess I don't think. I guess amortization should be included in the expenses.
Well, it's not a matter that's in dispute, and so.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're gonna try to calculate the net operating income, you should probably try to, I guess, maybe make sure you exclude the amortization. And I just wanted to see if that happened in this case, and maybe it hasn't. That would be all my questions.
Okay, any wrap up on this one for either one of you? Mr. Neufeld, any summation?
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Is there your income and expense statement besides the 2021, just to see the difference between, rent increases between 2015 and 2020 after the improvements were done?
Yeah, I've included, I didn't run them all because I knew we weren't disputing it. I only have those 3 years listed prior, 819, 828, 842 in income. That's actually an interesting point. Let me just find the historical to see how long it took to stabilize. Since I opened my big mouth earlier, I'd like to be right. Okay. Okay, so I've got the prior year of 17 at 790. So it went from 790 to 819. And I'm going back to 16. That was 501. So a year after the renovation, it was at 501. 2 years after, it was 790. And then you see the other numbers. So I think the number for 15 is going to reflect being much more volatile. I can just dig that up here. Oh, 500 again. Yeah, 520. So that was the renovation year.
Thank you.
Okay, any submission from either party? Mr. Wong,
No, thank you.
Mr. Newbell?
Yeah, I'm glad I was consistent today. Thank you.
That's it. So this property is finished then? Now, property number 8 is 633 Manchester Boulevard. Is there a submission by the, a submission by Colliers on this?
No, Mr. Chair.
Hmm?
There was
No,
no
we're
evidence.
We're just asking for it to be confirmed.
Are you? Okay. So 633 Manchester. Do we have to hear the report from the assessor?
Yes, he can just briefly describe the property.
Okay, you could give us your report, Tim.
Sure. The subject property is 633 Manchester Boulevard North. The roll number is 030-818-49100. The file number is 22-2737. I guess to sort of maybe expedite it, I believe that the value is supported by the market and the actual performance of the property is supports the model. And there's a sale for the property for $1.5 million, and which supports the 1,465,000. So I ask that you maintain the assessed value at 1,465,000.
Okay, so there's no report from Colliers on this one. No. That wraps that up, I guess.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And I think that was the last item on the agenda. So I think we're complete.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah, good.
very good. Well, thank you very much for your presentations. And we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Thanks, Rocky.
All right.